Om Narayanam Namaskrityam Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayet Vyasam Vasishthanaptaram Shakteh Pautramakalmasham Parasharatmajam Vande Shukatatam Taponidhim. And it means, having just invoked the name of the great God Narayana, we also bow to the greatest of all mortals, Nara, and we invoke the presence of Devi Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, and we invoke Vyasa, he of the great lineage of rishis who composed the Mahabharata. Invoking their presence among our midst, I now proceed to tell you the story of the Mahabharata. Like all good stories, all good stories begin in exactly the same way. We say, a long, long time ago. So a long, long time ago, we begin our story in the dusty plains of what is today northern India. These plains are guarded. It was a very holy ancient land, and these plains are guarded in the north by the granite snow-capped sentinels of the impossibly tall Himalaya mountains. These plains are very fertile, and they are watered by a very celestial river known as the Ganga, who not only sustains life, but also purifies the soul for afterlife. And in this ancient land, for many centuries, they ruled, it was ruled by an empire for hundreds of years. The name of the dynasty, it was the Bharata dynasty. And in fact, it is from this dynasty that the modern name of India is derived. In India, they don't call it India, they call it Bharat. And that's the descendants of the Bharata dynasty. Kings and emperors of this dynasty were very powerful, but they were also just, and they were compassionate. And as a result, this empire was the most prosperous, most powerful, the richest, and the holiest empire. Now, this is what happens when kings love their people instead of lusting after power. And this is what happens when people love God instead of lusting after material possessions. So it was a land where there was no famine nor floods. There was neither pestilence nor pandemics. All was in harmony. But trouble was brewing, as it always happens. It was the end of a great age, the Dwapara Yuga, which was a higher age. And the new, darker Kali Yuga was about to emerge. It wasn't that far away. And therefore, great cosmic forces were working. They were beyond human comprehension, and these forces were beginning to sow seeds of dissent, discord, disharmony, and darkness within the hearts of men and women everywhere. So our story picks up in this ancient land, in this period of transition. And the Bharata dynasty was ruled by a blind king. It doesn't matter what his names are. I'll try and keep these confusing Indian names to a minimum. I'll have to tell you a few, about 9 to 10, including my own name, not including my own name. This blind king had 100 children. People were they knew how to live life back in those days. And these 100 children, they were known as the Kauravas. That's a name you got to remember, Kauravas. And the king had a brother, and that brother had 5 children, and they were known as the Pandavas. So the Pandavas and the Kauravas, these are, 5 of them, 100 of them, they were cousins. Hey, everybody with me? Now, rightfully, the throne of this great kingdom belonged to the Pandavas, even though their uncle ruled the kingdom. And I don't have time to go into it. It's a long, long story, maybe some other time. Let's just take that as what the situation was. But the Kauravas, they really lusted after the kingdom. They wanted it so bad. And the head of the Kauravas, the eldest of them, Duryodhana, that's a name you got to remember. Duryodhana, he was a powerful man, and he really, truly wanted the kingdom. You know how when you want something, after a while you get blinded by it. Nothing else matters. That's how badly he wanted the kingdom. So ever since they were boys, these 5 and 100, they were at odds with each other, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And the elders and themselves, they tried to convince each other. They tried to argue with each other. They tried to cajole and coerce each other. And they even tried to fight with each other. They tried to kill each other. There's a time when one of the Kauravas drowns one of the Pandavas. And of course the dude doesn't die, he comes back, everything's fine. And another time one of the Pandavas tries to poison the Kauravas. And that doesn't work either. And there is a time when they set fire to the palace and tries to kill, but that doesn't work. And on it goes, and they even play a game of dice, allowing, wondering if the rules of chance would perhaps resolve this dispute in the succession crisis that they've come into. And that game of dice turns out to be a monumental disaster. So many bad things happen. Again, extraordinary stories. I don't have time to go into it. Just say that at this point, the 100 Kauravas and the 5 Pandavas have decided that there is only one course of action open to them. What do you think that is? War. They have to fight each other, and there is no other way the succession crisis can be resolved. Now, during this time, the Pandavas are getting better, meaning they are getting more virtuous. They follow dharma, and they are getting more compassionate in their outlook with other people. At the same time, the Kauravas are getting worse. They are gradually descending into darkness. They're getting more lustful. They're getting more prideful. They cannot control their instincts and desires anymore. So you see one of them getting better, the other getting worse, and then time comes for war. Now remember, this is the most powerful kingdom in the world at the time. So if there is a succession crisis in the most powerful kingdom in the world, it's not a problem limited to the dusty plains of North India. Every kingdom in the world would be affected, would it not? So every king, a message goes out saying you're either with us or against us. You have to side the Pandavas or you have to side the Kauravas. You have no choice. And so gradually, great armies begin to come together. The Pandavas have 7 battalions on their side, and the Kauravas have 11. The forces of good and evil are ready to face off against each other. Now, at the center of the Pandava army was a man named Arjuna. This is a name you have to remember. This is all about him moving forward. Arjuna was the greatest warrior of his times, bar none. Now let's take a step back. How was war conducted back in those days? They used bows and arrows, but not in the way you might think. When we think bows and arrows, we either think Stone Age people with little wooden bows and arrows, trying vainly to kill a mammoth or an elephant. No, it wasn't like that. And it isn't like the Olympic sport of archery either, where the only skill that is required is the ability to accurately shoot an arrow for great distances. No, the skill of these people were at a different level. It was unimaginable. First of all, the bows were over 6 feet tall and made of metal. Can you imagine a bow made of metal with so much tension in it, strung with a steel wire? And when you put an arrow in it and shoot it, it would go almost as fast as a bullet. And these warriors, they were no ordinary men. They could shoot 5, 10, 20, 50 arrows every minute. Such was their endurance and skill. Now Arjuna was very good. He was very skilled in archery. He could shoot not 50 or 60, but he could shoot 100 arrows a minute. And then he could do something else which was so amazing. He could use 2 bows in each hand, one in each hand, and shoot arrows in one after the other. Can you imagine the choreography and the skill that's required to do this? For this, he was called Savyasachi. Savyasachi means equal on both sides, ambidextrous. It's a complex Sanskrit name, but that's what it means. Not only that, he could shoot without seeing. All he needed to do was hear, and so extraordinarily attuned was his brain that was enough. He would shoot it accurately, hundreds of yards in the dead of the night, just based on sound. He was that good. He didn't need to sleep. He had overcome the need to sleep. So great was his inner storehouse of energy that he could fight battles for days on end without sleeping. He was called Gudha Kesha, one who has won over sleep. This was Arjuna, but that's not all. There is more. He had a magical bow that was given to him by the god of fire. It's a very interesting story about snakes, which I'm not going to tell. It's actually very complex. But because of that, in the end, the god of fire ended up becoming so happy that he gave him this bow. And you know what was interesting about this bow? It was called Gandhiva. Arjuna's bow was indestructible. It was constructed of an alloy infused with celestial power that no matter what you did, it wouldn't break. It's an indestructible bow. And the god of fire also had given him a quiver. Quiver is the basket on your back in which you put arrows. The quiver was inexhaustible. So you could keep going, he uses both his hands, so it keeps going. Indestructible bow, inexhaustible quiver. How much better can you be? Bar none. Well, with this you could create yourself a nice little war, couldn't you? You could maim and massacre a bunch of people. But then to have a real war, to have a man's war, you need something more. What do you need to have a real war? Weapons of mass destruction, WMD, of course. That's what you need. WMDs, back in those days, were these celestial weapons where you could, by the power of mantras, by the power of your concentration, the power of your sadhana, your practice, you could meditate on fire, and in an instant, the essence of fire would come into your hands in the form of an arrow, and when you shot it, it would arc high up into the air and rain fire down on enemy troops. You could cause serious destruction with this. You could invoke the essence of all snakes and shoot the arrow, and snakes, venomous snakes, would fall from the sky. How creepy is that? Now, each of these celestial weapons had a counter weapon. So there was the essence of water, the water arrow you could shoot, which would douse the fire arrow. And what would you do for snakes? What's the WMD that would counter snakes? Mongoose. Oh, mongoose falling from the sky. No. It's true, but it's just not elegant. Eagles, of course. You would invoke the essence of those bird of prey, and then eagles would swoop down and grab the snakes in their claws and vanish. So every arrow had a counter arrow like this. And Arjuna was the master of all of them, the greatest warrior. And did I say, by the way, he was drop-dead handsome. Truly was he. Wide lotus eyes and curly hair, he had it all. Okay, getting you back to the reality. We're about to start a war. And he is the greatest warrior on the Pandava side, Arjuna. On the Kaurava side, who do we have? We have Duryodhana. He is the king of the Kauravas, the eldest of them. But protecting the king is Drona. Drona the invincible. Drona is the guru, the teacher of both the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Remember, they grew up as cousins. So he's the teacher of both of them. And he is very skilled in all of these celestial weapons. He's very skilled as an archer. He has a bow that's over 7 feet long, tall. And he can, when he stands with his bow in his chariot, he is invincible. It is said that throughout his long life, he's an old man by now. He's well past his 70s, maybe even into his 80s. And he, throughout his life, after thousands of battles, it's said that he has lost exactly one battle. And that was to a divine being, not to a mortal. So he has always been invincible. That is Drona, the teacher. And then there is Karna. To say that Karna is a great warrior is simply stating the obvious. You just look at him and you say, that dude's a great warrior. It's obvious. He knows all the celestial weapons. He's unsurpassed in his skills of archery, swordplay, mace throwing, spear wielding, on and on. He is just about the best. It was said that when Karna was born, he came into the earth with a divine radiance. It was as if when the child came out of the womb, it was as if the sun came out. He had that interesting divine radiance because he was born with the blessing of the sun. And as a symbol of that, he had golden earrings. That was actually part of his form. So there was this semi-magical being Karna on the other side. And then there is this one weird man. His name is Jayadratha. He's very tall. He's about 7.5 feet tall. And he's sharp-featured, fair-skinned. He comes from the region that we today know as Afghanistan. And he's not a great warrior. He's okay. He's mediocre. Maybe some of us here could take him. There wasn't that much of a big deal. But he had one interesting gift. Many, many years ago, the great god Shiva, the Shiva is the patron saint of all wars. He's the god of destruction. So Shiva once gives Jayadratha a boon, a gift. He says, you can be invincible. No matter how many warriors come, no matter who they are, you can fight them. But just for one day. That'll be your day. Make it count. Except Arjuna. You can't fight him. There's reasons for that. Long story. Don't have time to go into it. So this is the cast of characters. You have Arjuna on the one side, Duryodhana, the king, Drona, the teacher, Drona, the invincible, and Jayadratha, who could not be defeated for one single day. Okay? Oh, and I almost forgot. There is one more. He was greater. He was more powerful than Karna. He was more knowledgeable than Drona. And he was more skilled than Arjuna. He truly was the greatest warrior of his age. He was handsome, charming, beguilingly charming. His heart was so filled with love that it said that when he walked into a room, people smiled and forgot their troubles and were instantly uplifted. He spoke as if with the voice of God. So when he spoke, kings and emperors listened to him. His wisdom was so subtle that he was considered by yogis and scholars as the wisest man ever. So this charming, handsome, great warrior was none other than Krishna. You see, he was a self-realized master. He was a liberated soul. He was God in human form, an avatara, an incarnation who walked the earth in human form. But Krishna chooses not to fight. It was well within his power to end the war anytime he wanted. But he chooses to be a witness. Think about what that means. I'll tell you more about this important consideration later. The role he plays is that of the humble charioteer of Arjuna. What a dynamic duo they might make. The greatest warrior with Krishna as the charioteer. And when the war is about to begin, Arjuna, his Gandhiva, the indestructible Gandhiva, he throws it down and says, I will not fight. Long story. Don't need to go there. Just that's what he does. Then at that point, Krishna says, Arjuna, what are you saying? Kutastva kashmalamidam shudram hridaya daurbalyam tyaktva uttishta parantapa. That's what he says. This is, which means the weakness of the heart is less than nothing. Throw it away, stand up and fight. And he says, you have to do your duty. You have to do your duty without expecting the fruits of it. And then he goes on to say the nature of the soul, the nature of the spirit, the secret of wisdom, the technique to do yoga, and on and on. And he continues, at one point he gives Arjuna the divine inner sight to see his cosmic form, the form of God, present in every atom of the universe, but also expanded across the firmament of the skies. This conversation between the devotee Arjuna and Krishna, the soul and spirit, is what we know today as the famous scripture Bhagavad Gita. All of this happens just before the war. And the war begins. two armies clash with each other. The first day, Pandavas suffer great losses. They're demoralized, but they pick themselves up, and the second day, they inflict great losses on the Kauravas. And third day, Arjuna, disgusted with all of this, begins to use celestial weapons. And there was such extraordinary massacre on the battlefield that night it was said that it felt like walking through a swamp because there was so much blood on the battlefield. And this war goes on. Third day, fourth, fifth, sixth, and on, 10th, 11th, 12th day. The night of the 12th day, Duryodhana says, he goes to Drona and he says, Gurudeva, this has gone for long enough. This is a war of attrition now. We'll all be killed needlessly. You have to put an end to it. Why don't you, sir, capture the king of the Pandavas, Yudhishthira is his name. Why don't you capture him tomorrow? And then we'll end the war. If we capture him, then that's it. So Drona says, yes, I'll do it. Don't worry. One of Drona's special skills is battle formations. Remember, there are 11 battalions. And the battalion is a huge size force, tens of thousands of people. And so the next day, Drona creates a battle formation. What formation was it? How were the troops arranged in battle? There are so many ways to do it. You've all heard of the Roman battle formations, very famous. Now here, he arranges in the form of a wheel. It's called the chakra formation. Chakra means wheel. So it's not people standing in a circle. That would be useless. Actually, it wouldn't be that useless, but it's far more sophisticated. It was 7 concentric wheels within it. So as soon as you enter, it has a narrow entrance. And as soon as you enter, the wheels, the concentric wheels form a maze because there is only one entrance and one exit. And not just that, the entire wheel spins. The soldiers move around. They are in different colors to identify the layers, and then they spin around, move around within the wheel so that once you enter it, it's impossible to get out, like rats caught in a maze. So Drona forms the chakra formation. There's only 2 people that know how to penetrate the chakra formation. Besides Drona himself, only 2 people. Who might those 2 be? Arjuna and Krishna, of course. They know. So what Drona does is he forms the chakra formation with 10 battalions. Remember, Kauravas have 11. And the other battalion, he sends it to distract Arjuna. And Arjuna is at the other end of the battlefield, fighting single-handedly with an entire battalion, which he can do. It's not a big deal. And then this spinning chakra formation, which is 10 miles wide, of thousands upon thousands of soldiers, elephants, horses, chariots, infantry, cavalry. Spinning formation comes at a dizzying pace towards Pandavas. It's impossible to resist. It's irresistible. Yudhishthira is now worried. What to do? Arjuna is not there. Drona has tricked us. So he calls an emergency military council of all of his great generals. Says, anybody know how to get into this? Nobody does, because it's formidable. Very, very few people know how to execute it. Drona the Invincible is a master at it. And the Pandavas are panicking, that they are desperate. And then from the back of the military council comes a tender, boyish voice and says, Uncle, I know how to penetrate it. And Yudhishthira recognizes the voice. It is the voice of none other than Arjuna's son. His name is Abhimanyu. Remember that name, Abhimanyu. He's a boy of 14 years old, that's all. He hasn't lost that chubby milk fat that boys, but children of that age tend to have, but he's also becoming a man. You could see it's, sometimes he looks like a boy and sometimes he looks like a man, but he's already proved himself to be a great, great warrior in the last 12 days. So Yudhishthira says, Abhimanyu, how do you know to penetrate this formation? All the great warriors around you, look around you, nobody knows. Karna doesn't know. Duryodhana doesn't know. Bhima doesn't know. How do you know? So Abhimanyu tells him. What happened was, this story I am going to tell you. When he was still in the womb of his mother, Abhimanyu's mother, Arjuna's wife, is also Krishna's sister. Hey, everybody with me? Krishna's sister, Subhadra, is Arjuna's wife, and that's Abhimanyu's mother. In India, the tradition is when a woman gets pregnant during her last trimester, she goes back to her parents' house, the last trimester, to be surrounded by her mother, father, brothers, sisters, and that's where she gives birth. So that's those 3 months of complete downtime for the about-to-be mother, and she stays there for an additional 6 months, being well taken care of. So Subhadra has gone to her parents' house during the last trimester. Her parents' house, of course, is Krishna's house. So she's in Krishna's house. Krishna he dotes on his younger sister. And so one day, she's very pregnant at this point, and they've had a good meal in the afternoon, and it's a lazy afternoon, and she is about to doze off, and she says, Krishna, I'm bored. Tell me a story. So she lies down on the bed, and then Krishna sits next to her, puts his hand on her forehead, caresses his sister, whom he loves so much. And then he begins to tell some story of gods and demons, whatever. And she says, oh, that's boring. I don't want that anymore. You've told me that before. You said that yesterday. Tell me the story of how the chakra formation is done and how can somebody get into it. Krishna says, really? Well, I guess pregnancy does strange things to women. Fine, if that's what you want, that's what you'll get. So he begins to tell all the nuances. He says, this is how it spins, and then when you see the red pennant right here, that's when you need to enter. You just have 2 seconds to do it. And so on and on. And then Subhadra says, every now and then, And slowly it gets more lazy, more languorous, and then it trickles off, trails off. And then by now Krishna has explained to her how to get almost to the center of the formation, and then her acknowledgements stop. And then he's about to stop, he finishes his sentence, he's about to stop. And then another voice comes and says, as if, tell me more. And Krishna says, what is this? And the voice is coming not from her mouth, but from her womb. So just to test his theory out, he continues, he finishes how to get to the center of the chakra formation, and the unborn baby says, And then Krishna says, he's now, that was the kind of age it was. These things were okay. He says, no, little baby, you got to sleep now. Otherwise, you'll start kicking your mother, and Subhadra wakes up, and we don't really want that. So he says, I'm done. In the war council, as the chakra formation is coming towards them, Abhimanyu is narrating this story to Yudhishthira and says, Uncle, this is how I know. I know how to enter it. It was, I learned it from Krishna himself. I know exactly how to enter it. And then the other shoe drops, but I don't know how to leave because my mother fell asleep before Krishna could tell me that. Then Yudhishthira says, then what to do? Of course we can't let you go in there. And Abhimanyu says, no, I got an idea. I'll enter it. I'll create the opening. You guys just follow me. It's like how you'd follow a car to get to a destination that you wouldn't know. And then together we can just, boyish enthusiasm, he says, together we can just kill all of them and come out. The Pandavas are desperate. They got no other recourses. Yudhishthira says, okay. And so the Pandava army makes into a formation of its own and gets towards this great spinning wheel. It's rapidly coming towards them. And then Abhimanyu enters the chakra formation. He's so quick, he's lightning fast, that the person at the head, the person guarding the chakra formation, has no time to react. Before he could look around, Abhimanyu has entered it. This 10-mile wide spinning formation, Abhimanyu is inside. But then suddenly, the man that's guarding it recovers and begins to defend it. Who do you think that man is? Jayadratha. Remember that guy? Not a good warrior, 7 feet tall, but he could be invincible for one day. This was his day. And Arjuna was not there. So there is nobody that can get past him. None shall pass, he says. And so young 14-year-old Abhimanyu finds himself within this most extraordinary of all formations, surrounded by tens of thousands of Kaurava warriors ready to kill him. And all the other Pandavas are held at bay by the invincible Jayadratha. Such is the hand of fate. But Abhimanyu knows this. He knows what happened. He's a warrior after all. And he doesn't care. He begins killing thousands upon thousands of Kaurava warriors. Such is his skill, his ferocity, that it's as if it's a lightning bolt that stuck in the midst of a dry forest in the midst of summer. So it's like a forest fire burning intensely, decimating, vaporizing everything in his path. All the great warriors of the Kaurava side, one by one, they face him. He defeats all of them. This young boy of 14, he defeats Karna not once, not twice, but many, many times. He defeats Drona himself. He defeats Duryodhana. He wounds him so badly that Duryodhana actually faints and runs away. And Abhimanyu continues to fight. Now, initially when Abhimanyu came into the formation, the Kauravas were happy. They said, now we have Arjuna's son, the battle is over. Hours later, they are desperate, they are panicking. It seems the battle is over, but not the way they thought. That they might be defeated by him before the day ends. So they are panicking. What do you do? If you were Drona, what would you do? Well, Drona does the unthinkable, unspeakable. He's fighting on the side of evil, even though he is the guru of both Pandavas and Kauravas. He's chosen the side of evil. And that's the trick. That's the thing with getting on the slippery slope, is eventually you will start to slip. So Drona begins to, he doesn't know what else to do. So, see, back then, these wars had very specific rules. They were like Geneva Convention today, but they were adhered to because it was a matter of honor. And you know what the rules were? The first one was, when warriors fought, they fought one-on-one. It was never two-on-one. Multiple people never attacked you, because it had to be an even match. And second, you would not kill, wound, or maim animals in the war. That was, if it was a battle elephant, of course you would, because that was part of the war. But otherwise, it was forbidden. What was the third rule? You would never, ever attack somebody from behind at all. And the fourth rule, under no circumstances, no matter what the provocation, you would not war with somebody who has lost their limbs or they don't have any weapons. You would not go to war with them. These were the rules, and they were followed. Good, evil, nobody crossed that line. And this has been in place, had been in place across the world for as long as anybody can remember. So Drona does the unthinkable. What does he do? Young boy of 14, Abhimanyu is fighting. They cannot do anything. So he calls 6 of his warriors himself, Drona, Karna, Duryodhana, Dushasana, Ashwatthama, Kripa. He calls all these 6 great warriors. I wish I could tell you the story of each and every one of them. Extraordinary people. Knowledge of celestial weapons, old and young. And he says, surround him. Surround Abhimanyu. Even they gasp in horror for a moment. But such is the ferocity of Abhimanyu, Arjuna's son, Krishna's nephew, that they are desperate, they are fearful, and then they surround him. And then the most evil of them all is Karna. So Drona goes and whispers to Karna. He says, Karna, look at Abhimanyu. He is so quick in drawing the arrow and firing the bow, and he keeps going. And it's like if the blades of a rotating fan, that even though it's 3 individual things, when it rotates, you see it as one solid thing, and it becomes impenetrable. It becomes a wall. It says Abhimanyu is like that. So you cannot wound him simply because he never stops. He's one, him, his bow, his arrow, his chariot is all one solid mass. So the only way to get to him, the only way, is from behind. You have to cut his bowstring from behind like a coward. Karna says, yes, I will do it. He says, yes. What is an unspeakable thing to do? So, and then the 6 people surround Abhimanyu, and still he gives them the fight of their lives. In fact, their hearts are aflutter. They are thinking that this is it. We cannot fight this young boy. He's turning around and taking all of them one at a time. But then eventually, Karna too is a great warrior, and one of his arrows finds its mark. And in the middle of the draw, Abhimanyu's bowstring is cut, the bow twangs back, becomes straight, and he has lost his weapon. Not for a moment does it faze him. He jumps down from the chariot, takes a sword in one hand and a mace in the other hand, and begins to fight. Like a hurricane he moves through the Kaurava warriors, the great princes. And once again, they are desperate. So Drona indicates with his shifty eyes at this point. You know what Karna does? He takes an arrow and cuts off his wrist. The fingers that were holding the sword, along with the entire palm, falls down, and there is just a stump. And another Dushasana, another warrior, he cuts off the other wrist. Abhimanyu still doesn't care. His chariot is destroyed by now. He leans down, picks up with his stumps, puts his hand into the spokes of the chariot wheel, and begins to wield it and begins to fight with it. What a soul! What determination! What extraordinary power! What samskar should he have to fight like this? But then eventually, even this light has to be extinguished. Such are the forces of evil. So somebody from the back, like the cowards they were, cut off, lop off Abhimanyu's head. Then he lies down on the ground. The entire Kaurava army now suddenly realize what they have done. They are warriors after all. Spontaneously they lean down and tears are streaming from their eyes. This is not what they signed up for. This is not the glorious war and death they had in mind. They pay silent homage to this great soul, Abhimanyu. And thus ends day number 13 of the war. And news reaches Arjuna. That night he's come fresh from killing an entire battalion of people, and news reaches him. What would he do? What would a warrior do? What would a father do? He's stupefied into inaction for a moment, and then he falls down on the ground, beating the ground with his hands. Such is his grief, he cannot tolerate it. His emotions are mixed. He's confused by it as a warrior. What else would you want for your son other than the death in the battlefield in the most honorable way possible? But then as a father, his heart is broken. He cries, he lifts his head to the heavens and begins to wail piteously. Greatest warrior, Arjuna the indomitable. He drops his head and weeps, his body shaking, convulsing with grief. But then Vyasa the poet, he says, after a while, Arjuna's eyes swallowed the tears. It's as if the eyes sucked the tears back into them, and in its place, there emerges the fire of anger. With red eyes, Arjuna stands up and he looks at Yudhishthira, says, brother, elder brother, how did this happen? How did you all, great warriors, every single one of you, how dare you let my son go into the chakra formation? And Yudhishthira, what can he say? He says, we made a mistake. This is what we were planning to do. But Jayadratha, who we didn't think of much, he was able to hold us all. It was like we were fighting with some god. He was a minor warrior. I don't know what happened. And now Arjuna has a target for his anger. So he stands up, holds his Gandhiva, the bow, and he says, he looks at the heavens and he says, hear this, O Devas, O angels in the heavens, hear this. Just as surely as the sun will rise tomorrow, just as surely as my next breath will come from the grace of God, and just as surely one day the god of death will take me, just as surely Jayadratha will die by dusk tomorrow with my own hands. And then he completes the terrible, terrifying second part of his vow. He says, if I am unable to do that, tomorrow at dusk, I will create a fire and enter into that fire and I will die. It is either him or me. Day number 14, it's the time to choose. This cannot go on for any longer. I will die or Jayadratha will die. Jayadratha hears this. He is terrified. This was his day. After this, he's just an ordinary guy. Like I said, one of us could take him, probably. Now Arjuna himself is saying, I'm going to come after you. He sees death coming towards him. He's petrified. But Drona, Karna, Duryodhana, they are ecstatic. Why? Because all they need to do is protect Jayadratha for one day and Arjuna will die. The war is over. How stupid he is, they think. And thus begins Arjuna's greatest battle. On day number 14, either you die or I die, he has said. There is no recourse, there is no compromise, not today. For lifetimes it has been done, but not today. He bows to his elder brother Yudhishthira as the day dawns, and Yudhishthira says, you have my blessings. This is your day. Go forth, fight the battle, you will be victorious. And then Krishna looks at him and says, Arjuna, you are greater than Drona or Karna, he says. How is it? Arjuna asks. Do you not remember? Krishna says, some years ago, the great god Shiva, the patron saint of all wars, the lord of destruction, he gave you his celestial weapon. What is the weapon of Lord Shiva? It's called Pashupata. Pashupata means the weapon of animals. It is the vitality of all animals, even the human animal. The vitality of creation itself is embodied into this weapon. Remember I said all weapons have a counter, all of these WMDs have a counter? This one doesn't. Once it's deployed, it has to kill its target or the entire universe will be destroyed. And that's it. There are no two ways about it. Arjuna had forgotten. And Krishna reminds him, today you're greater than them. You see, this is when we go into our greatest battles. Each of us have done that in our lifetimes. We look at it, we look at what's in front of us, and we think about all the ways in which we are not up to the task. And we get discouraged. And then we get reminded by the divinity within saying, you have this great weapon that no one else has. Of course you will be victorious. We just need to listen. We each have that destructive power of Shiva within us, not to kill people, but to kill the bad tendencies within ourselves. That's what this war is. It's a metaphor for the battle of life. I'll tell you more as we go along, but keep that in mind. So Krishna reminds Arjuna that he has the one weapon that nobody else has. The vitality of creation itself is at his command. So Krishna says, when I tell you, deploy that weapon. Don't hesitate even for a moment. And the moment Arjuna remembers it, he feels this great power of creation with him. And to onlookers, it feels like he's grown a little taller and there is a great radiance in his face. And then with his lotus-like eyes, Arjuna looks at Krishna and says, Lord, I have an even greater weapon. What's that? I have you with me. You've been with me for all of these 13 days and you will be with me today. How can I not be victorious? Krishna himself is my charioteer. So saying so, he gets into his chariot and then he goes towards the Kaurava army. Now what has Drona done today? Well, there is one formation that's even more amazing than the chakra formation. That's the Padma, the lotus formation. Think about a lotus. This is how a lotus looks when it's in full bloom. Think of that, it's about to bloom. This is how it would look. Any flower would look like this, and it's about to bloom. Everybody with me? Imagine it lying on its side, like this. And each of these petals is a complex formation of thousands of soldiers. So that's the lotus lying on its side with the narrow opening, and within that is a long, thin, needle-like formation, which flares out into the eye of the needle right at the center of the lotus here. And that eye of the needle is a formation of 10,000 elite elephant soldiers. And at the center of it is Jayadratha. And this lotus, you know how big it is, how long it is? It's 18 miles long. The entire 11 battalions, or what's left of it, is now part of the lotus formation with the eye of the needle right in the middle of it, flaring out, with the needle in the middle, flaring out into the eye with 10,000 elite elephants. Right in the middle is Jayadratha, it says. All we need to do is protect him for this day and let the lotus formation do it. And Arjuna rides to the front of this formation, the front of the lotus, and there's the narrow entrance. And who is there at the entrance? This time, Drona is taking no chances. Who do you think is there? Drona himself. He stands tall. He's an older man. He's tall, he's a little bit thin, and his bow is 7 feet high. Full of tension, that kind of bow. And he has long, silvery locks streaming from behind him in that morning breeze, and a long, flowing beard. And he stands like the god of death, guarding the impregnable lotus. And as he stands there, his eyebrows are knit together in anger and determination. He's ready for anything. Drona the Invincible. Remember, there is only one battle he's lost in his entire life, which was to that divine being. Now it's two, of course, because yesterday he lost to Abhimanyu. And so Krishna whispers in Arjuna's ear, he says, Arjuna, today you cannot fight with Drona. He's going to keep you here for the next 6 hours. He's that good. So seek his blessing. How do you seek blessing in the middle of a battlefield? How would you do it? I told you Arjuna had style. He had panache. So what he does, Krishna swiftly takes his chariot to within 10 feet of Drona. And Arjuna stands there, and Drona and Arjuna gaze at each other, implacable, granite-like expressionless faces. Jaws are clenched, brows are knitted in anger, and then they are gazing at each other. And without warning, Arjuna very swiftly, faster than the eye can follow, takes an arrow, shoots it towards Drona, and follows it up with another one. And the arrows arc gracefully up and land with a twang at Drona's feet. The inside of the big toe of the left and the right foot, one arrow each on the inside of the big toe. And so precise is Arjuna's aim that it nicks the skin just a teeny bit, just a little bit, to draw one perfectly shaped drop of blood in each big toe. And while Arjuna is doing that, Drona has taken one arrow and shot it towards Arjuna, and then it comes, grazes his forehead at precisely the point between the eyebrows, drawing one equally precise drop of blood. And so the disciple has bowed to his teacher, and the teacher has blessed the disciple. The armies on both sides are hushed into silence. They have never seen anything like this. Everybody knows what's going on, and they marvel at the skill of young Arjuna and the old invincible Drona. This is how it should be, they say. And as they are doing this, in lightning fast moves Arjuna with both hands. He begins to release 5, 10, 50, 500, 700, 1,000 arrows, one after the other, before anybody knows what's going on. It's like a wall of arrows that's moving. The Kauravas panic, and the lotus parts open just a little bit, and Arjuna is inside. And before Drona could do anything, Arjuna has begun his war. Now, single-handedly, Arjuna moves through the Kaurava armies. How was it? How did he move through it? The poet informs us. He says, if you imagine a forest, through a pine forest through which a great wind is blowing, then what happens? The pine cones begin to drop with that plopping sound. He said, the heads of Kaurava warriors began to drop on the ground like a wind moving through a pine forest. Such was Arjuna's skill and speed. And then he begins to use celestial weapons. Fire rains down on the hapless soldiers, and before they can get out of it, those few who survive it are soaked with waves of water, and rocks come and drop on them, serpents, and on it goes. Because all the others are still stunned by this raw display of skill. But then they recover, though they too are great warriors after all, and soon Drona is back, Karna is back, and they begin to counter with their own celestial weapons. And this war goes on for about 3 to 4 hours. So by now the sun has come to its zenith, it's noontime. And then Arjuna's horse begins to be a little bit, the chariot begins to be a little sluggish in its response. So Arjuna looks at Krishna and says, Lord, what's happening? Why is my horse a little sluggish? And so Krishna says, the horses are tired. They need water. And Arjuna says, okay. He says, okay. Just think about it. In the middle of the war, surrounded by everybody, he says, my horses need water. He says, okay. Where will he get water? It's not like you can say, okay, everybody stop, freeze, right there. Let's take a time out. My horses need water. Take 5. It doesn't work like that. But see, great minds can think of things that other people consider impossible. So you know what Arjuna does? He has 2 bows, and in one he keeps facing the entire army. With one hand, one bow faces the entire army. And in the second one, he draws a weapon from his inexhaustible quiver. He draws the weapon which invokes the elemental power of water, and he shoots it into the ground. And then there is a lake that forms right in the middle of the battlefield. Talk about style. Crystal clear blue waters with waves, right in the middle of the battlefield. And then Krishna unhitches the horses, and Arjuna is single-handedly facing enemy in front of him with one hand. It's like, do you need anything else? And Krishna says, you know, the horses are very nervous because you're killing people. There are fountains of blood all around. How can they drink water? Arjuna says, okay. He says, okay. And with unimaginable skill, he builds 4 walls of arrows all around. And there is created in the midst of the bloodiest battlefield the world has ever seen an oasis of peace and tranquility with the lake with blue waters right there. And then Krishna unhitches the horses, and he takes the horses to the lake. And the horses drink to their fill. They have wounds, they're bleeding wounds on their bodies. And so Krishna caresses the wounds of these 4 horses. God himself, God comes and nuzzles and massages the wounds of these horses. Up in the sky, the angels, the devas are looking at this spectacle, and they say, how fortunate are these horses to be caressed by the hand of God. Great masters practice for lifetimes to be touched by God, and here are these 4 horses. They're being caressed by the hand of God. And then they rain down fresh jasmine and rose blossoms on these horses. Imagine this scene. Arjuna with raging battle outside, the entire Kaurava army right in the middle of the great lotus formation. He has only a scant 4 hours before either he dies or Jayadratha dies. And he's created this wall of arrows with a lake in the middle where God himself is taking care of his horses. What a battle it is. Isn't that amazing? And then after a little bit, Krishna says, I'm ready. Arjuna says, it's okay, take a little more time. I got it under control. And then, very soon, Arjuna jumps back on his chariot, and the battle continues. Now, by now it's already 4, 5 o'clock. It's getting to be the end of the day. There are so many battles. What can I tell you? What can I skip? I don't really know. Should I tell you about the battle between Karna and Bhima, where Bhima, the Pandava, defeated Karna not once, not twice, but 17 times? Or should I tell you about the battle between Arjuna and Duryodhana? Duryodhana was wearing a great armor which was indestructible. Arjuna's arrows had no effect. And should I tell you how Arjuna, with impossible precision, shot arrows into his toes and fingers and nail beds and injured him so much that King Duryodhana had to turn his chariot and flee? Should I tell you about the notorious, infamous battle between Satyaki and Bhurishravas, where one of them finally sits down in lotus position and renounces his life in humiliation? What can I tell you? This day, this 14th day of Mahabharata, was the day in which human fortitude and frailties were in full display. Every range of human emotion was seen that day. Every gradation of good and evil were displayed on that day. Above it all stood Arjuna, the devotee, and Krishna, God in human form. You see, the entire war is a metaphor. It's an allegory. It's representative of the inner battle that we fight. One day we too will have that 14th day. As we get on our quest to find God, we have to begin to fight this battle. What are our allies in the battle? The greatest ally that we have is self-discipline, determination, patience. That's our ally. That is Arjuna. Our Arjuna within us. Next time, you don't feel like doing anything, but you don't feel like doing something that you know is good for you, but you go ahead and do it anyway. That's Arjuna. No more bets. Remember, with this indomitable warrior, such is the power. If we exercise the self-discipline, it can be done. Who are the enemies? What prevents us from finding God? Desire. King desire, Yogananda calls it. That is Duryodhana. How Duryodhana sinks into evil. That's how it happens with us with desire, doesn't it? We begin by slightly wanting something. And then pretty soon we cannot resist it. Jhayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayate, it says in the Bhagavad Gita, that as you begin thinking about things, it converts itself into desire and then to lust. That is Duryodhana. That's our biggest enemy. But then the lieutenant, the right-hand man for this is Karna. What is Karna? Attachments. It's the heartstrings. Anything we want to do, they say, no, I like my house. I don't want to go there. I like the setup. I really need my morning coffee. You know, those, it might sound trivial, but those are the, and then eventually, when you follow them to their source, they become great big enemy warriors like Karna does. So it's desire and attachment. Who is Drona? It's the power of habit. How many times is it that we've started to do something great? All our forces are marshaled together. We started to do something great, and then we just don't want to get up in the morning because I am a night kind of person. I've been habituated for 2 decades to stay up late into the night. I want to change and eat better. Now I just love that chocolate. Broccoli just doesn't do it for me. You might laugh, but this is the power of habit. How irresistible is it? If you ever try to give up smoking, you know what I'm talking about. It's irresistible. That is Drona. Can you see? It's an ancient warrior because it's been with us all the time. It has not been defeated. The only time Drona was defeated was by a divine being that by the grace of God every now and then we've been able to overcome the power of habit. This is the metaphor. This is the battle that I'm describing. But there comes a time in this battle when we say, day number 14, today I die, or you die. Who is the you? Deep in meditation, when we've gone into a breathless state, when God is just beyond that sheer little curtain, you suddenly remember, good heavens, I'm not breathing. And then the body wakes up and says, I'm here. And then we come out of that state, being attached to the body, is our biggest enemy. That is Jayadratha. So that's why on day number 14, in our day number 14, we say, I will go beyond the body today. Yogananda used to say, I killed Yogananda a long time ago. He was, of course, talking about the ego, but it begins with abhinivesha, the body-bound consciousness. That is Jayadratha. And then you see the beautiful metaphor in the impregnable lotus formation. It's our desires and attachments and habits protect the body consciousness in the eye of the needle, way deep in the 18-mile wide lotus. That's the battle we are describing. We'll come back to it. Anyway, now it's almost sunset. Arjuna has come to the eye of the needle. So many battles, such extraordinary day this was, I didn't even get to skim the surface. And then he realizes it's times like this. We're not that far away from sunset ourselves. The eye of the needle, if you remember from some time ago, it is a formation of 10,000 elite elephant forces. Arjuna says, this is it. He's waged the greatest battle, perhaps since Rama fought Ravana. This kind of battle has never been seen. He's waged the greatest battle ever. And it's not enough. He knows he can't do this anymore. How can he, in the scant minutes that are left, he can use celestial weapons, but it'll be countered. There is Drona and Karna and Ashwatthama all around him. They won't let him. Minutes are ticking by. It's like one of those movies where you have a bomb and a countdown timer and two people are trying to dismantle it. And what do? Human effort can only take us so far. How much more effort can you imagine beyond what Arjuna did? How much more effort can any of us imagine? This is when Krishna decides to take matters. He decides to jump into action. Arjuna, by now, he has taken a weapon, and it's not meant against his enemies, but rather the weapon, it's the weapon of fire. It is meant, when he shoots that weapon, his funeral pyre is going to be created. That's the fire he's going to enter and die. He's waiting for the red orb of the sun to sink below the horizon. And then suddenly, surprisingly, stunningly, they see Jayadratha himself running out of the formation. And he's shouting, he's saying, it's dark, the sun is set, I am free, I'm not going to die. Again and again he repeats this. He runs out of the formation like a madman from the eye of the needle that was supposed to protect him. And then Krishna says, shoot him now, Arjuna, Pashupata. Take that weapon of Shiva and shoot him. See, what Krishna did was he used his yogic powers to reach into the mind of Jayadratha and kill and create in his mind the illusion that it was dark. Effortlessly, he maintains that illusion, holding onto the mind of Jayadratha. God holds on to this evil man's mind, and as soon as it was dark, Jayadratha came running out. But of course it's not dark. Everybody can see the sun. He cannot. Kill him, Krishna says. And then Arjuna becomes silent. Om Namah Shivaya, he says. It's the sacred 6-syllable mantra. Om Namah Shivaya, he says, chants, and all of his power, concentration comes in. The form of Shiva comes into his forehead. And the animistic creative power of the entire universe manifests itself in the form of a silver arrow, luminous arrow. And as he holds his hand out, Om Namah Shivaya, the arrow comes in his hand. He takes the arrow, shoots it. Pashupata weapon, once it's shot, it cannot be taken back. It has to kill Jayadratha. He's as good as dead. He's as good as dead. Duryodhana and Drona are smiling. They're laughing. You see, Jayadratha's father, he too is an evil man, but he had some powers. He had put a curse. He said, anybody that causes the head of my son to drop on the floor, on the ground, their head will split into 1,000 parts and they'll die. That's the curse. So Drona and Duryodhana are ready. Okay, go for it. You'll die in just a moment. Krishna says, Arjuna, shoot the second arrow now. Use all of your skills. Jayadratha's father is on the other side of the battlefield. It is dusk, so he's doing his evening prayers. He's chanting the Gayatri mantra, literally, at that point. And he says, use your skills. Remember, Arjuna doesn't have to see the target. He says, use your skills. Shoot the second arrow to take Jayadratha's head, to drop his bloody, severed, decapitated head on the hands of his father, just as he's about to drop the holy water into the river. Unerringly, Arjuna does it. Smooth, swift arrow takes Jayadratha's head, drops it into his father's hands. What would you do if you're in the midst of your meditation and the bloody head dropped in your hands? I would drop it on the floor, on the ground. And that's what he did. And he dies. His head splits into 1,000 pieces and he dies. Jayadratha is dead. The Kaurava army is demoralized. They put their best foot forward. Evil put its best foot forward. But human effort, combined with God's grace, easily mastered it. Arjuna has avenged the death of his son Abhimanyu. This day marks the turning point of the war. And on day number 15, Drona dies. Day number 17, Karna dies. Day number 18, Duryodhana dies. This was the turning point. Day number 14, either you die or I die. In our own battle of life, when we dedicate our lives to God, there comes a time. The quality of self-control guided by divine intelligence. That's why we meditate on God. You just don't meditate, you meditate on God. Your charioteer is important, not your skill. Guided by divine intelligence, it helps us navigate through the maze, through the formation, the chakra and the padma formations of desires, of attachments and of past habits. And sticks with us until the very end and tells us, shoot the arrow right now, and offers its own grace to overcome that which we cannot overcome. So on this 14th day, Arjuna made the monumental declaration, today it is either I will have the superconscious experience, or you, my attachment to the body, and you will die, or I myself will die trying. So when our 14th day comes, it will come to each of us. It's as inevitable as sunrise and sunset. Every one of us will get that 14th day when we fight the final battle for salvation. Let's fight the inner battle with all of our might. Let's create an oasis of calm with panache and style right in the middle of this battlefield, staying calm throughout. And let's not forget the indomitable power of Pashupata, the power of Shiva, the god of destruction that lies within us, which helps us destroy our habits, desires, and attachments. Let's chant like Arjuna did. Perhaps if you held out your hand to this chant, you might get the silver luminous weapon that might help you with your own inner battle. So sit up straight, open your heart, and listen to this great, wonderful chant, Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Shivaya, Om Namah 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 Shivaya.
With all my heart, with all my soul, and with all my strength, I choose thy love. I choose only thee. Thou art my mother. Thou my father, thou art. Tvameva Mata, Chapita Tvameva. Chant with us.
Tvameva Mata, Chapita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhu, Shasaka Tvameva, Tvameva Menya, Tvameva Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam, Mama Deva Deva. Thou art my mother, my father, thou art. Thou art my brother, my friend, thou art. Thou art my wisdom, my wealth, thou art. Thou art my all, light of lights art thou. Tvameva Mata, Chapita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhu, Chasaka Tvameva, Tvameva Menya, Tvameva Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam, Mama Deva Deva. Thou art my mother, my father, thou art. Thou art my brother, my friend, thou art. Thou art my wisdom, my wealth, thou art. Thou art my all, light of lights art thou. Tvameva Mata, Chapita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhu, Chasaka Tvameva, Tvameva Menya, Tvameva Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam, Mama Deva Deva. Thou art my mother, my father, thou art. Thou art my brother, my friend, thou art. Thou art my wisdom, my wealth, thou art. Thou art my all, light of lights art thou. Thou art my all, light of lights art thou.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.